So I have a rule. If a game doesn't look good to me, I'm not playing it. You know them 16-bit era pixel art games? They're always interesting, right? Because whenever you take a look at the trailers, you always see that they pretty much portrayed as if it was, well, as if it wasn't 16-bit, basically, as if it was like 3D graphics and everything like that. And then sometimes you go to play the game, and it's only then that you discover that, oh, this is a 16-bit game. Now, I don't have anything against that art style. I don't, it's just not for me. That's the short of it. I don't want to play in a game that looks like a 16-bit game. If I want to play 16-bit games, I'll go crack open a PS1 or something. So I opened a game yesterday, and it was like that. I turned it on with sight unseen. Basically, it's one of those games that I had downloaded from PlayStation Plus, and I was like, you know what? Let me just go through this list. Let's see if there's any hidden gem in here. And then when you start it up, it plays a little intro cinematic, and it looked amazing. I think it was, ooh, I forget what the name was. Anyways, unimportant. So then I get into the game and I get into the tutorial, and it's this 16-bit pixelated, looking thing, and I'm like, no, I'm not doing that anymore. I know that there's lots of people that enjoy pixel art. I'm not one of them. If you're not gonna give me at least 2.5D or something like that, or I think Hollow Knight. Hollow Knight is the graphical art style that I will tolerate at the very least, like the bottom of the barrel. That's where my floor is. If you have anything older looking than Hollow Knight, you can forget about it. I'm not playing this game. The reason I wanted to start the conversation this way is because Rise of the Ronin has been in a conversation lately, and people online are going back and forth. Some people are calling it a PS3 games, like myself. Other people are calling it what is it? Other people are calling it a so I just saw a funny tweet. Other people are saying that essentially it looks great, it looks fine for what it is. It is a Team Ninja game. That's what they call it. They call it a Team Ninja game, and they're saying that you should not expect anything other than that from Team Ninja, which is fair enough, right? The developer has historically made games that had amazing gameplay and only passable graphics. That's cool. That's cool. That's fair enough. But the thing for me is this: if you have a PlayStation Studio splash screen, if you charge $70, then I'm going to compare you to Horizon Forbidden West. Straight up. And if you're not living anywhere near that standard, okay? Anywhere near that, then I'm not going to play your game. 100%. Like, call me evil for saying that graphics matter just as much as gameplay. The way I see it, right? There's a triangle of things that I need to exist within a game for me to truly fall in love with it. Number one is the presentation, that is the audio visual side. Number two is the story, of course, and the lore and everything like that is included in there. And then number three is the gameplay. All of these are equal to one another. So let's walk through some games. Take a look at Rise of the Ronin. Nobody's going to say it has bad gameplay. In fact, I think the gameplay looks amazing. The story apparently is so fair enough. And then the presentation for me, it's garbage. It can be fine for you, but it's completely garbage to me. So I'm not gonna play that. Let's take a look at something like Bloodborne. Bloodborne, I think, had great graphics for the time. It was super passable. At least it was passable, right? I think it had good graphics, so that's fine there. I think that the story and the lore is what let it down for me, but it had amazing gameplay. But the story and the lore, the thing is, Bloodborne, like every Dark Souls or FromSoft game, they have amazing lore, but they have no story to speak of really. Or it's one of those cryptic stories that you have to piece together yourself. I'm not trying to do that. I'm not trying to play um what was it be? I'm not trying to play detective with your story in a game. That's not the kind of storytelling that I enjoy. And so I don't really like Bloodborne. I don't like any Dark Souls games because it bores me. It bores me. What am I here for? And what am I saving? I don't care about this world, so why would I want to save it? I know that for so many people, they enjoy it because it's the challenge. It's the going up against an opponent and everything. And I don't mind challenging games. I truly don't. But if you don't give me a reason to care about what it is I'm doing and why I'm doing it, I'm not playing your game. Same reason I haven't played Elden Ring before. It's like, What am I doing in this world? Conversely, let's take a look at something like Persona 5, right? I love Persona 5 Royal because it has all three. It has the graphics or the presentation, it has the story, and it has the gameplay. So for me, one thing to note is that when I say graphics, I don't mean photorealistic. I mean whatever art style you've chosen, just be excellent at that. Rise of the Ronin is not excellent at its own graphical art style. I'm not the one that told them to go for photorealism. But the point is, they did go for photorealism and they suck. Their cities have like five NPCs in there, and four of them don't have any shadows. And may I remind you that Assassin's Creed 2 had more populated cities, better looking graphics, more interesting diversity in its environments than Rise of the Ronin does. I'm sorry, it's 100% true. So when I compare it to a PS3 game, yeah, it's not hyperbolic. It fails to clear the bar that the PS3 game created. I'm pretty sure Assassin's Creed 2 wasn't a PS3. So, yeah. That's the thing with Rise of the Ronin for me. And now, I think the second part is the conversation in the community. Because people are right to point out that gamers apparently love this idea of double A games and reduced budgets. And yet when they get something like Rise of the Ronin, now they want to complain about the graphics. That's the difference between these people who are like fair weather fans and myself. It's that I stand on my ground. I'm not going to play an ugly game. I don't care how much it costs. If it's ugly, it's ugly. You can have something like Halo Infinite. Halo Infinite is pure garbage. Disgustingly ugly. But it costs a lot of money. It's AAA, right? Like no one is going to say that Halo Infinite isn't a AAA game. But you take a look at those trees, you take a look at that biome, that singular biome, and it is more disappointing than Halo 1 way back on the original Xbox. I would rather play the first Halo than play Halo Infinite. 1000%. Because at least the first Halo for its time was cutting edge graphics. Halo Infinite falls woefully short of even Rise of the Ronin. So it's not about the money thing. It's not about the photorealism thing. Because take a look at games like Hollow Knight. Take a look at games like Hades. Take a look at games like Greece. Games that I played recently. Omno. The Gardens Between. All of these indie games. Spiritfarer. All of these indie games, they have vastly different art styles. And yet they are able to present amazing products, amazing graphical presentations in the niche that they've chosen to follow. So that's what it's about. But gamers, like I said, apparently nowadays we love this idea of the double A game from PlayStation. That's a lie. You're lying to yourself. Stop lying to yourself. Or maybe you're not lying, but understand that the community at large doesn't want that. The community at large did not support Ico or Shadow of the Colossus or Gravity Rush 1 and 2 or Concrete Genie or many of these other games. Hell, even games like Kenna Bridge of Spirits. It did well, but it didn't sell gangbusters. Like it's not a Switch game, like it's not selling 10, 20 million. It's not. That's because the majority of gamers, year after year, the games that they buy are the AAA, graphically amazing powerhouse games. That's what people go for. And they don't always have to be better than a Horizon or better than The Last of Us, but they have to be at least graphically good, at least graphically great. You take a look at Hogwarts Legacy. Hogwarts Legacy is a great looking game. Is it better looking than Horizon? No, of course not. But it looks pretty damn good, and that's what people go for. Even Elden Ring. Elden Ring, again, compared to Horizon, it falls a little bit short. Fair enough. But compared to everything else that's out there, it is 7 or 8 out of 10 graphically. It's a really good looking game. That's what people go for. If Elden Ring had come out looking like Rise of the Ronin, it wouldn't have sold what it did. I don't care how much, like I do not care how much people will go like, oh, it was word of mouth. Word of mouth is not moving you out of that little bag. It is not. If Elden Ring had come out looking at Rise of the Ronin, that would have been a problem. So let's not be disingenuous. The next thing is stop saying that you want double A games from Sony when you don't. You don't support the double A games. I don't support the double A games. I'm the reason they closed Sony Japan Studios. I don't know if I've ever supported any game from Sony Japan. Ever. And I'm proud not to have because they were not interesting to me. You know, when people talk about what else are they saying nowadays? What other nonsense are they saying besides the double A game? Oh, they're saying that they want triple A games, but then they want games that fall within 10 to 20 hours. I agree with you. I think we need more of that. We need more of the Ratchet and Clanks. We need more of the Spider-Man Miles Morales. We need more games, even from Sony, that are going to last for about 10 to 20 hours for the main campaign. Fair enough. But the point is, then a lot of gamers will complain that those games are not worth full price because they are not getting X amount of hours out of the product. So stand and save your chest. If you believe that a game needs to basically give you 80 plus hours in order to be worth your $70, say that. If you believe that a game needs to be graphically impressive as well as having great gameplay, say that. If you believe that gameplay is king and everything like that, say that, but don't say the opposite when it happens to a game that you don't particularly like. Okay? Because again, you have lots of people out here being fraudulent and saying things like, oh, Rise of the Winner doesn't deserve to be full price because of XYZ. And then you check the timeline and they were just begging for double A budgets and double A games from Sony. Clearly, every time that Sony tries to give you a double A game, you don't respond positively. So what you're gonna end up getting is more games that please people like me. Because as it turns out, the games that please people like me please the majority also, and therefore you're only going to pretty much see those games come out. So that was my little conversation that I wanted to have on Rise of the Ronin. The other game that is in contention this week or this last few weeks has been Dragon's Dogma 2. And this time it's about the microtransactions. Now, I haven't played Dragon's Dogma 2, but from everything that I see about the microtransactions, these are some of the most optional microtransactions you could ever have in your life. Fair enough. People have compared them to like basically cheat codes that you can only use once. They just charge you for it. Okay. My view is this. On principle, a full price single player game should not have microtransactions, especially if it's not a live service model. So I would disagree with its inclusion on principle. But there's nuance to everything. Do I think that Dragon's Dogma should be boycotted or should be avoided, or would I personally avoid it because of the microtransactions? No, I don't think so. I don't see how it was worth it for Capcom to include these microtransactions, given the fact that the conversation has now revolved around the microtransactions so much and it is detracting from the great aspects of the game. But they did, and it's too late to go back in time. It's fine. What I do want to say is that a lot of the people that are defending Dragon's Dogma's microtransactions do not keep the same energy when again it is a game that is not as favorable to them. Take a look at something like Gran Turismo 7. Gran Turismo 7's microtransactions are just as optional as the ones in Dragon's Dogma 2. And they've always been that way. But people were refusing to listen back then when Gran Turismo 7 first came out. When people were telling them you can just get by playing the game. And that's all they say now. They say, oh, you can find all these items in Dragon's Dogma 2. Don't worry about paying for it. You can find all of this in game. Well, back then, proponents of Gran Turismo 7 were telling people the same thing, but they didn't have the same reception. So you've got to be consistent in that. And Gran Turismo 7 has the excuse of being a live service game. And now that we have seen, I guess, the benefit of hindsight, it's been a few years since it's come out, it has added dozens of cars that have to be fully modeled. The audio has to be fully integrated. Certain gameplay options have to be fully implemented. So it's not just the shell of the car that you are getting the physics modeling behind everything like that. Not to forget the interiors and all of the beautiful stuff that they do, the history of the cars that they add, you know, all of that integration has to go into a single car. And they've added dozens for free without any extra cost, you know. And Gran Turismo as a game will quite often gift you a car. You know, if you sign on your birthday, you'll get a car or a spinning ticket that allows you to win a car if you are so lucky. So the conversation is different, even though the nature of the microtransactions was the same. They were both just as optional for their respective games as one another. I will agree that the Gran Turismo 7 microtransactions are far more expensive. And I'm not happy with that. I'm not happy with the fact that you can spend up to probably five to six thousand dollars. Like if you said to yourself, I want to buy the Gran Turismo 7 on day one or today, and I want to buy my way through every single car. Like I'm gonna pay the 400 million credits that it would take to acquire every single car or something like that. It will cost you probably $5,000 or $6,000. I think that is egregious as a practice. Like I understand it's a live service, and now we have pushed this idea of microtransactions to just be straight up money transactions or macro transactions. But I think that there should be some more measure of restraint there. I think that PlayStation should reduce the prices of their microtransactions for Gran Turismo 7 by at least 50%, but more likely like 70 to 80% for them to actually be justifiable. Because the amount of the very fact that it's even possible is a problem to me. You know, like sometimes that's it. Like no one in the right mind is gonna go buy Gran Turismo 7 and then just credit their way, like buy their way with real money through all of the cars, the 500 or so cars that you can get for it. No one would do that in the right mind. But the fact that it is possible to spend that much money in the game, you know, it stinks of a little bit of FIFA Ultimate Team to me. It stinks a little bit of just egregious, gaming practices to me. So I'm not too happy about that. But at the same time, if that's just as optional in Gran Turismo 7 as the ones are in Dragon's Dogma 2, what leg do you have to stand on there? So that is that. Dragon's Dogma 2 is an interesting point in the conversation. I don't think that the game should be penalized for it. I don't think anybody should avoid it because of the microtransactions. The only reason I don't have it is actually two reasons. Number one, I found the performance to be abysmal on the PlayStation 5. Many people have spoken about this before, but it's like, I guess as a gamer, your expectations change with time, right? Like there was a time when there were no analog sticks on controllers, and then when the joysticks got introduced, you expected after a while, right, that these games would use the joysticks and not just the directional pad. So that became kind of standardized. Then the shoulder buttons, I'm not sure exactly which one came first, but still, you kind of expected over time for this to happen. Or even the controller layout. Like right now, we expect R2 to shoot the gun, right? So now you have that standardized. This generation, for me, standardized 60 frames per second, right? Like it is kind of like the biggest, I guess, leap that this generation introduced in terms of the gaming performance for consoles. And yes, this is just purely about consoles. So I expect your game to live up to that standard to a satisfying degree. If you don't, I'm not playing you. I'm not playing your game. I'm not playing games at 30 frames per second. Um, yeah, I'm just not. I'm pretty sure from now on, ever since I got the PS5, I'm pretty sure almost from day one, I've refused to play games at 30 frames per second. Is that big a difference? I have Red Dead Redemption 2, and I actually got it at launch because it was a gift that a friend kindly gave to me. And I remember playing it on the PS4, and I thought there was something wrong. I'm not sure if it hit 30 frames per second on the PS4, but I definitely thought, this just doesn't feel good. And when he gave it to me, we were already so close to the PS5 that I told myself, okay, I'll just wait to play it on the PS5. Then the PS5 came out and I tried it again, and now you're definitely hitting at 30 frames per second. But I tried it again after having played Horizon Forbidden West. And the contrast from being able to play at 60 or a higher frame per second on Horizon while still maintaining great visual quality versus playing this thing at a log 30 frames per second. I played it for about an hour. I never got out of that. I don't know, did I even play for an hour? I struggled with it for about an hour. You know, when you like you try to play, then you put a controller down, then you go do something in the kitchen, and you come back and you try again, and you're just like, this just isn't clicking. So many years later, it still doesn't have a 60 frames per second patch. I'm not playing Red Dead Redemption 2 until it has at least 60 frames per second while maintaining great visual quality. Straight up. I guess it helps that I didn't buy it myself, but still, it's a game that I actually would like to get into because I did play with the first Red Dead Redemption and I remember really enjoying it, even though I will have to take a look at a YouTube catch-up video in order to remember what the story was. So there are those moments where it's like, I'm not doing that for any game from now on. Um, then the other thing with Dragon's Dogma and the reason I'm not playing it is because I played Dragon's Dogma 1. Again, I struggled through it and I just was not enthralled by it. I just didn't really like it. A lot of people talk about all of the crazy things that you can do in Dragon Dogma 2, but very few people talk about the story and how good and captivating that is. It could be, I don't know, I haven't looked into it. But from everything that I've seen people post so far, nobody's saying, "Oh my God, the story here is amazing." It's more about the gameplay mechanics, which is fine. But I told you, I've got my triangle. It's presentation, story, and gameplay. And if you miss out on even just one of those, I'm not playing your game. And the reason that I'm so comfortable making that decision is that there are too many games to play, guys. I'm sorry, there has to be some kind of like picking order. There has to be some kind of standards that have to be cleared in order for me to play a game. I'm not gonna be able to play every other game that piques my interest once or twice. I can't. Nobody has time for that. Like, what, you get 10, maybe 20 hours of gameplay in a week, and that's really pushing it at the 20 hours? You don't have time. You don't even have time to play the games that you are excited to play nowadays. You know, you don't have time to play all these games. So it's like, I have to choose where my time goes. And my time is not going to go to what I believe to be a subpar experience. So if the story isn't there and the performance isn't there, then I'm not going to play Dragon's Dogma 2. Now, if the story is there, but the performance can be improved with a PlayStation 6 or a PlayStation 5 Pro, then I will play the game once I've acquired that piece of hardware that's going to allow it to perform at the standard that I want it to perform at. So those were my thoughts on Rise of the Ronin and Dragon's Dogma 2. Now, the other thing that I want to talk about, speaking of the PlayStation 5 Pro, is let's talk a little bit about Digital Foundry. I am not a fan of Digital Foundry. It's not because I believe that they are biased against one company or another, but it's because I believe that Digital Foundry portrays themselves to be expert in a field that they're really just making, I guess, at best, educated guesses in. I still remember when the Series X was being announced. And you know how Microsoft came out with the power narrative, with the word salad, you know, the ALLM, the velocity architecture, the SSD speed. They didn't go as hard as Sony did with the SSD, but they still mentioned it quite a bit. The variable rate shaders, the true RDNA 2, the hardware-based ray tracing, acceleration matrix. You know, they had everything in the dictionary as an acronym to tell you why this technology was going to be not only great, but so much more powerful than the PS5. And Digital Foundry ate it all up. They ate it up and they were treated to a royal treatment from Microsoft. You know, they had the magnetic jigsaw puzzle and they put it all together and they were so impressed because it fit within this nice little chassis and everything. Sure. And then they did no research of their own. And I thought they did a huge disservice to the gaming conversations and to gamers in general. Even though I wasn't on Twitter, so I didn't see to the extent to which people hung on to the words, I was actually extremely surprised when I finally kind of got into the community and I saw just how much power they wielded over the gaming discourse. But I thought they did a huge disservice by focusing on one spec, just like Microsoft wanted them to. Because this doesn't happen with any other like area of tech. Like, take a look at the camera I'm shooting on. It is a 24 megapixel sensor. There are cameras out there that have 100 megapixels of a sensor. But as a photographer or a person that just enjoys the hobby, you know that you don't necessarily know if the 100 megapixel sensor or camera is better than a 24 megapixel camera, because there's so much more that goes into being a camera than just how many megapixels are in the sensor. On kind of more general side, I'm shooting on a 1080p screen right now, or at least my monitor is 1080p, and there are monitors out there that are 4K, and there are TVs out there that are 4K. But no one would tell you that, oh, just from the amount of pixels on the screen, that makes one screen better than another. Not necessarily, and not necessarily in every way. There's a reason that a Hisense 4K might cost you $1,000 for a 75-inch screen. And then you go to an LG C2 OLED, blah, 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 and then suddenly you're looking at $2,500 for the exact same technology, and the exact same, sorry, for the exact same pixel count. So it's a 4K screen and the exact same size, but now you're 2.5x the price. So we understand that there's more that goes into being a TV than just how many pixels you can put out. And I thought that teraflops were the equivalent of pixels, whether that's on a camera, on a monitor, or on a TV. It is one spec that alludes to a certain amount of performance, right? Because we do expect, generally speaking, an 8K screen to be of better quality than a run-of-the-mill 1080p screen, right? Because we just figure to ourselves like it takes so much work to get to that level that you might as well make the whole thing better. So there is kind of like a general, like, yeah, like if you have more teraflops, that should be better. But it certainly doesn't tell us how much better, right? Like an 8K screen could be better than a 4K screen, but how much better? And then once you put that screen within a whole TV, is a 4K TV necessarily worse than an 8K TV? Most of us will choose a 4K LG G3 77-inch than an 8K TCL 98-inch TV, because we understand that the screens themselves are one part of the whole, but as a whole, the product that the LG puts out may actually be miles better than a product that TCL pulls out. That's fair enough. So we have that sort of like common sense consumerism discipline built in us. And I felt that Digital Foundry didn't do the due diligence when it came out to the consoles. They basically were running at basic as numbers, being like, oh, it will be 10 to 20% improvement in frames. And then when the first week came out, and lo and behold, it wasn't all of that. They acted like it was confusing. Like they acted like, oh, there's something missing here. It might be bugs. It might be tools. It might be this, or it might be that. It might be developers. But lo and behold, once more, it's been nearly 4 years since these consoles have been out. And time and again, all they've done is swap back and forth as to which one is the more powerful one. Even Microsoft stopped calling their console the world's most powerful console. It is what it is. So I don't like Digital Foundry because I felt like they had a duty of care to the people that listen to them, and that they failed on that duty of care. Fair enough. Now they're talking about the PS5 Pro, and I feel like we are seeing, I guess, the limits of the expertise, quote unquote, yet again. Because now it is focusing again on singular stats. Like the big thing nowadays in the discourse anyway, is that the PlayStation 5 Pro CPU is only going to be 10% more powerful or 10% more clocked. Who knows if that even translates to anything, than the one that is currently used in the PS5. Okay. Could that have an effect? Sure. May not have an effect. Okay, cool. But the point is, we are once again boiling down the conversation to a singular spec, a singular statistic, based off a rumor as well. But still, let's take it as true for now for the sake of conversation. I don't think that makes things better. I don't think that allows the gamer that is focused and that is tuning into these shows and that is listening to Digital Foundry to have a more educated view of the industry and what they can expect, whether that's from a hardware perspective or pretty much anywhere else, or like from a particular software technology that they're putting in it. Because PlayStation has their whole PSR, technology coming out, which is the PlayStation Super Spectral Resolution thing, whatever it is, right? Bunch of marketing words. What does that mean? Does anybody even understand what RDNA2 is? I don't. I have no idea. I don't know what RDNA is. It's like, what is it? It's a bunch of technologies that they find a marketed term for, but it's like we say it colloquially, almost like it's supposed to be understood. Like, yeah, the everyday gamer fully understands what we mean by RDNA2. Like, we fully break down the separate things that go into making an RDNA anything. No, we just brandish around these words, and now we've got pizza in order to brandish around. And it's like, okay, does that mean that this pizza technology is going to give me what I want from PS5 Pro, which is 4K 120 frames per second? No, maybe, perhaps, possibly, who knows? But now we have Digital Foundry going out there and throwing speculation out that, oh, because the GPU is 10% more clocked, or supposedly blah, blah, blah. It may or may not, but it will, but it can't do X, Y, or Z. And I'm just like, now you're dragging the conversation back down to talking about a singular spec. Why can't we just wait and have the conversation be, we don't know? Why can't people just admit when they don't know something? Let's just say we don't know. We don't know how good this will be. We don't know how much a role Pixar is going to take play in the PS5 Pro's success or ability to overperform compared to the standard PlayStation 5. We don't know. I feel like I miss the age of people saying we don't know. And I think I enjoy NX Gamer as a counterpoint to Digital Foundry because I believe his approach, while yes, he has an element of subjectivity, of course, he looks more as an explorer. He's a person that goes and tests and then tries to report the information without the pretense of being an expert in the field or necessarily being the guy who is going to then use this information that he's already gotten to then extrapolate theoretical performance for a product that has not been officially spec'd out yet. I think I respect that approach. I respect the person that just tells me they don't know. I do. I think that is a more frank conversation, and it's okay to be in limbo. It's okay not to know. Yes, speculation is fun, but when you are looked at with a measure of authority in terms of expertise in the community, like Digital Foundry is, I think they should just be more careful and more readily admit that they don't know. You don't always have to provide a theoretical answer. Sometimes you can just say, hey, we don't have enough. Like, let's just wait and see. At least let's just wait and see until Sony comes out and makes a certain amount of claims. Because if Sony came out and then say, hey, listen, with our PlayStation 5 Pro, before we show you the console, we'll just tell you that we are aiming for a 50% improvement in frames, and these are the technologies that we've put in order to deliver that to you. At least then you could start breaking down like, okay, we believe that this 50% improvement in frames is thanks to the PSR, or it's thanks to the higher clock speed, or it's thanks to the beefed up GPU, so on and so forth. You can start to then extract, you'll be like, okay, this part should relate to that. But right now, it is a vacuum, it is a void. And I know that nature hates a void. So therefore, they feel like I'm going to just put something out there based on a theoretical spreadsheet. That's not okay with me. Okay, next thing I want to talk about is finally, I want to talk about Hellblade 2 and the Xbox community, I guess, as a whole. Has anyone felt that the Xbox community nowadays is just not as vibrant as it used to be? Like they are down, but they are down, not in a fighting mood, because in 2022 they were down because the reality was not really aligning with what they had promised themselves or what they felt that they were promised. But now they're just down like silent down. Because back then they were still fighting, you know? I remember it was like, oh, most games are third party anyway. That was why 2022 wasn't that bad. Or they would say something like, most games that sells are third party, so who cares if we don't have a first party, this year. But they kept in it, they kept in the fight. They were fighting from a losing position, but they were still fighting. Nowadays, it feels like the fight has gone out of them. And, there are examples in the community of people that are still fighting, gas being one of them. And I respect that, I do. But even then, you're not feeling that fire anymore. It's more like fighting out of habit because it's what they know to how to do, than genuine excitement that things will get better. And I mean, Xbox fans, if you happen to be here, first of all, thank you. But if you happen to watch this video, I just want you to know it's not getting any better this generation. This generation is lost. What I would work towards and encourage your platform to work towards is a correction, starting with next generation, I think. I think you should sacrifice this battle so you can win the war later. Um, the Series S has been an anchor to whatever potential performance the X was going to have. I think it has just dragged that thing back. It is just the dead weight that the big brother has to carry around. And that dual console strategy, there's a good reason that PlayStation considered it many times, but they just never committed to it. It's a bad strategy. So I think just let this generation go. It's fine. It's already lost, so you're not really losing much by letting it go. I agree with Gas's idea of even starting earlier than PlayStation, whether that is by a year or two. Come out with a single console, make it a beast of a console, and then reclaim the identity. I think that's so important. Make it console exclusives again. Delay the PC releases, just like PlayStation is doing. Get rid of Game Pass day and date. Charge for your games and tell your gamers, hey, you know what? You're going to get these games after 1 year. Like when you put it on PC, put it on Game Pass. But for that first year, you need to have the game be able to make back its bread, how much it costs. At least it has to break even within that first year. And then Game Pass revenue downstream is just a great thing to have. Come out with an Xbox handheld. People have been talking about the Xbox handheld, and I think it's a great idea. This year, I will always say is a dumb product. It is. The PlayStation Portal, completely dumb product. It only makes sense and it's only intelligent or smart or a good investment if you are in a very slim niche that it can actually fulfill in. The more I use it, the more I find that it kind of fits into that. Like I kind of fit into that niche, not perfectly. I don't use it as much as other people claim that they do online, but I always thought, okay, take this, make it run some native games on it. If Xbox can do that, just create this exact same thing. Just copy paste, including the dumb look. Like seriously, this is so comfortable that it is worth the awkwardness of the design. So just do this, yeah, but do it for Xbox. Have the asymmetric sticks and everything, right? Make it stream Xbox Series games, right? Make those stream only, whether you're streaming from the console, but also add a cloud option, right? You love xCloud anyway, so make it be able to stream from the cloud as well as directly from your console. Then add a SIM card to it, or an electronic SIM to it, so that it can actually receive mobile data natively without being tied to the phone, because that consumes phone battery life. And then make it able to play Xbox, the first original Xbox games, as well as Xbox 360 games. I don't think you should play Xbox One games. I think Xbox One games are still kind of too powerful for this form factor. You will have to make it a lot thicker, you have to make it a lot more expensive, whereas I'm thinking make a $300 handheld or a $250 handheld. Make it everything, right? Add in the electronic SIM so you can get data to it. Add in the native gaming for Xbox original and Xbox 360 games so you can play directly on it without any internet connection. Stream from both the cloud or the console your Xbox One games and your Xbox Series games. And I think you have a great thing on your hands. And I think you have a wonderful value proposition. For even $300, I think you're going to find that a lot of people are going to like that particular value proposition. They're going to think to themselves, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Why wouldn't I want, this particular thing? So I think that that's what the Xbox community needs, as well as, of course, having more games for the console. But again, I just feel like this generation is lost. I think that Phil Spencer was wrong when he was talking about last generation was the worst to lose because people had built their digital library. I think this generation is the worst to lose because now people have lost faith in you. Forget about digital library, man. The fact that people have lost faith, the fact that you have no mind share, that is far more damaging than anything that could have come out of last generation. So the fact that this generation is lost means that games are the way to go. Of course, 100%. Don't create a handheld even if it means that you have to sacrifice games. Bring out the games, bring out the Fables, bring out the Perfect Darks, bring out the Hellblade 2s, and all of the games that you've already promised are going to come out. Um, Try to avoid them getting the disavowed treatment because disavowed is, I mean, it's a tragedy what they did to that game. But still, try to avoid that going forward and then bring out an Xbox handheld. I think an Xbox handheld, now is the time. The Switch 2 is going to come out, that's going to have a handheld form factor. The PlayStation Portal, no matter your feelings on it, that is a handheld form factor. The Xbox handheld, I think, should just be a smarter product than the PlayStation Portal. Copy 95% of what the Portal is, and then add that extra 5% that will make it a much more viable product for a much wider range of people. Because again, I always believe that the PlayStation Portal appeals to maybe 5% of the PlayStation gaming population. It's not bad, but it's not a lot. I think that if you made those changes that I suggested and then came out with the Xbox handheld, you will be able to appeal to at least 20% of your population. And I think that would give people a reason to get into the Xbox ecosystem. And you are defending your console by being able to say, okay, series games, you're not playing natively here, you're playing it through cloud. And for the people that will want to be like, no, I want to play these games natively, they will still have to go out and buy your console or be able to access it on PC. So I really like the idea of an Xbox handheld. I think having more competition in the handheld space is good in the first place. So, and also it might encourage PlayStation to do the same, right? Maybe they're going to create a PlayStation Portal Pro, which is going to have PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2 native games on the console, and then you still have to stream PlayStation 4 and then PlayStation 3 and PlayStation 5 games. But you have access to PlayStation Cloud. Or, that would be a good improvement. So that's it. I think I was supposed to talk about Hellblade 2. Listen, Hellblade 2, I think, is going to be a very interesting moment in the history of this generation for Xbox because it is the first game that they are putting out that is a graphical showcase through and through. Nobody can tell you that Hellblade doesn't look good, you know. And I just hope that they have improved the gameplay from the first game. But even without an improvement, I think it will be a great litmus test as to where Xbox is going and where we can expect them to be, just a few years down the line. I'm still holding on hope that next generation for Xbox is going to be the moment where they say, okay, you know what? Let's stop fucking around. Let's stop playing games. Let's stop buying things and putting things on PlayStation. Let's get the crown from the king. Like, I want them to go for the jugular. All of this nonsense where they want to work more with PlayStation and Nintendo, I don't like it. I've already said when it comes to the console space, I believe in segregation. Xbox, keep your games and keep them away from PC. PlayStation, keep your games and keep them away from PC. Nintendo, keep your games and keep them away from PC. PC, keep your games and keep them away from consoles. I believe in full segregation. Get those Berlin walls up. Let each community have to hop across, to each particular platform if they want to access those games. I have no issue having to buy a Nintendo Switch 2 in order to play Mario or Breath of the Wild if I am interested in those. Sure, cool, no problem. I have no issue in accessing Xbox games on the platforms where it is supported if I want to play those games. And yeah, I believe that that support should shrink in size so that day one you're focused on the console. Sell the console. Don't tell people that the console isn't necessary. With PlayStation, I believe the same. Put all of these single player games at least. Let them be just on your console. None of this PC day and date stuff. Mm-mm. I'm not interested in that because each of these platforms need their own identities. And we can get more into the business talks and the appeal to the mobile gamer and everything. But I think what these executives need to realize very quickly is that mobile gamers are not playing God of War because it is not available on mobile. Or at least, let me rephrase that. Mobile gamers are choosing not to play God of War, not because it's not available on mobile, but because God of War is not the type of game they want to play. So if you take God of War and you just translate that to a mobile screen, whether that is natively somehow or whether that is through streaming, mobile gamers will not play that game. They are not interested in that type of experience. It's the same reason that I guess many people that would go and play mini golf, for example, are not going to go to an actual golf course and have to pay the price to get into the golf course and get the membership and get the golf clubs and everything like that. Yeah, there are just some people that would happily play mini golf and they would never consider in their lives playing actual golf. And I feel like while the analogy has limitation, it rings true to me. You know, my mother plays Bejeweled or some version of Bejeweled or Candy Crush, whatever, one of those match three games. And if I tell her like, hey mom, you can play Life is Strange on your phone now, she's not playing it. If I tell her you can play Grand Theft Auto on your phone, she's not playing it. If I tell her, oh, you can play Horizon Forbidden West on your phone, she's still not playing it. Like console gamers are like it's not just this, I guess, nebulous gaming population. Oh, 2 billion gamers, as Phil Spencer always talks about. Yes, it's 2 billion gamers, but maybe only like 500 million at best are interested in your type of games. So I will caution these executives to just be mindful of that before they go out and say that, oh, we want to invest in mobile and they want to appeal to the mobile gamers because mobile gamers like mobile games. If you're going to appeal to them, sure, no problem. But then create mobile experiences from the ground up. Don't ask Naughty Dog to make a mobile game. Buy another studio or create another studio that is specifically focused on mobile games. I think that's the mistake that PlayStation has made with PlayStation VR 2. They have not gone out there to buy or create development studios that were going to be solely focused on PlayStation VR 2. I'm not sure if I would say that PlayStation VR 2 is a failure, but I will say that for a lot of people, the first party output on PlayStation VR 2 is basically non existent. And I think that if Sony wants it to be a bigger success than it already might be, then they should go and invest in creating first party titles for PlayStation VR 2 without necessarily having to rely on legacy studios that are much more about, the 2D, or I guess the flat gaming experience, the TV gaming experience. So yeah, those are my thoughts on that particular one. Okay, so I think that's it. That's it. Do I have any updates on the portal? No. I'm still testing a few things. Oh, I will say, if you have the portal running and you download the game to your PS5, so let's say that you want to download the game for whatever reason, like you wanted to play, I don't know, Need for Speed, and you want to download the game to your PlayStation 5, and then you want to use the PlayStation Portal in the background playing another game, terrible experience. The fact that you are downloading another game to the PS5 completely tanks the performance. It doesn't matter what network you're on. So one thing that I will say, if you do get a Portal, just spend a little bit of time making sure that you've downloaded whatever experiences you want to have on the Portal, because if you're going to try and download and play at the same time, that is going to be problematic. So I guess that's one thing that I've discovered that I can update you on with regards to the Portal. Another thing that I can update you on is that when you plug in a 3.5 millimeter, wired headphone here, on the DualSense, you have the console. The console will detect that, and depending on your options, it will switch to basically giving you audio specific head like for headphones. Let me try that again. It will switch to giving you 3D audio for headphones automatically. When you do it with this, it doesn't do that. Or at least in the system settings, it doesn't reflect that it has done that. So at the moment, without doing any workarounds, I don't think it is possible to actually get 3D audio from the 3.5 millimeter jack on the PlayStation Portal, unless your console was already set to give you headphone audio pretty much all of the time. So that's another thing that I've discovered. I still haven't tested it out in the sun, but I will be going out to test it a little bit more. I think I have an issue around my place because I know that network reception is already poor around my place. So if I go out and I test it, it might not be that I get bad results because the portal is having any issues or the remote play experience is bad, but because my cellular data is already kind of shit around my house. So depending on how much time I have, I will go and I will test a few more things on the portal. Blaze was saying this the other day, but there is something exciting about having a new hardware and a new device to play with, and that's been fun. Even if I find certain flaws and everything like that, it's just been fun to have a new device in hand to be able to be like, yeah, let's test out exactly how it works. Let's see every way that it fails and every way that it succeeds. So that has been a fun experience. Again, if you're on my full thoughts on the PlayStation Portal, I released a video a few days ago talking about that in more detail. Okay, that's it from you guys. Thank you for putting up with this. I did want this to be a long video because I wanted to get my thoughts out. So, there's nearly an hour of content. Jesus Christ, it feels weird to say content. Like, to think of myself as a content creator, ugh, it still feels weird to say. I'm just a guy that is talking to you on YouTube, and apparently a few of you are listening, which is very kind. So I appreciate that. All right, talk to you soon.